The entire table went silent. Grandma smiled warmly, lifting her glass. Before we eat, I just want to ask, Binta, how's the house I got you? The one in Coral Lane? My fork froze midair. My chest tightened. Everyone turned to look at me. My cousins, my parents, even Della, my younger sister, who suddenly looked pale. I swallowed hard. What house, Grandma? Her smile faded. Confusion crossed her face. The $480,000 house I bought in your name, through your parents. You didn't move in. And right then I realized someone in that room had stolen my future. The dinner table was full of laughter, the sound of plates and Christmas songs playing softly in the background. Everyone was happy until Grandma suddenly looked at Binta and asked with a smile, "How's the house I got you, dear? The one in Coral Lane?" The room went silent. Binta froze, her fork still in her hand. "What house, Grandma?" she asked, her voice shaking. Everyone turned to her in surprise. Her father cleared his throat and quickly tried to change the topic, talking about the food. Her mother forced a small laugh and took a long sip of her wine. But Della, her younger sister, just looked down at her plate. She didn't say a word. Grandma frowned, confused. "The $480,000 house I bought for you 2 years ago. Through your parents. You didn't move in?" she asked again. Binta's heart dropped. She looked around the table. Her father's face was stiff, her mother was avoiding her eyes, and Della's hands trembled slightly. Something was very wrong. "Maybe it's a misunderstanding," her father said quickly, trying to sound calm. "You know how paperwork can be." Her mother nodded, adding softly, "Yes, maybe the papers got mixed up. We'll sort it out later." But Grandma wasn't convinced. Her smile faded completely. "A misunderstanding?" she repeated slowly, her tone firm. "I sent the full payment myself. I even told you to register it in Binta's name." The tension in the room grew heavy. Binta felt everyone watching her, waiting for her to stay quiet and let it go. But she couldn't. Her stomach twisted as she tried to understand what was happening. Why would Grandma think she owned a house she never even heard about? Her father finally said, "Mom, please, let's enjoy dinner. It's Christmas." But Grandma didn't look away from him. She stared right into his eyes, disappointed, suspicious. Binta tried to smile and continue eating, but her hands were shaking. The laughter that once filled the room was gone. The only sound now was the faint clinking of spoons and the beating of her own heart. Deep down, she knew this wasn't some paperwork mistake. It wasn't confusion. It was a secret, one her family didn't want her to find out. And as she sat there, pretending to eat, she promised herself she would uncover the truth. That night, Binta couldn't sleep. The question from dinner kept replaying in her mind. "How's the house I got you?" Grandma's voice echoed over and over. She turned on her phone and decided to search for the truth herself. Maybe there was really some kind of mistake. Maybe Grandma had been confused. But deep down she knew something was off. Binta opened the property registry website and typed in her name, hoping nothing would come up. But when she saw the result, her breath caught. There it was, a house on Coral Lane, worth $480,000. The documents showed it was bought exactly 2 years ago, just like Grandma said. But the name on the papers wasn't hers. It was under her parents' trust. Her hands trembled as she clicked through the details. She read the buyer's information again and again, hoping she was reading it wrong. But it was clear. The money had come from her grandmother, but the house wasn't registered to her. Her parents had quietly taken control of it. She scrolled further, checking the current resident's name, and her chest tightened. It said occupant, Della Olenire. Her sister. Her own sister was living in the house meant for her. Binta covered her mouth, feeling tears sting her eyes. Memories of Della came rushing back. How she had always been the favorite one, the one their parents protected, even when she made mistakes. Binta remembered when Della's marriage fell apart last year. Their parents had cried for her, called her too fragile, and spent all their savings helping her. But now she saw the full picture. They hadn't just helped her. They had stolen for her. She clicked on the property pictures and saw Della smiling in front of the same house. Her latest social media post showed her in the same living room. The curtains, the couch, even the golden frames, all real. Binta felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her. She sat in silence for a long time, staring at the screen, her heart pounding painfully. The truth was too heavy to accept. Her parents had lied to Grandma, lied to her, and handed her gift to someone else, as if she didn't matter. She wiped her tears and took a deep breath. The shock was slowly turning into determination. She whispered to herself, "They think I won't find out, but I already have." That night, Binta didn't sleep at all. The truth had finally come out, and she knew. This was only the beginning. The next morning, Binta woke up early. She hadn't slept all night. Her mind was full of questions, and her heart felt heavy. She heard voices coming from the kitchen, her parents talking in low tones. At first, she wanted to ignore it, but something about their voices made her stop. She quietly walked closer and stood by the door, hidden behind the wall. Her mother's voice was shaky. "We couldn't tell her," she said softly. "Della needed a place after everything she went through. You know how fragile she is." Her father sighed deeply. "I know," he said. "But Binta will find out eventually. You saw Grandma last night. She won't let this go. If Binta discovers what we did, she'll never forgive us." Binta felt her chest tighten. Her hands trembled as she leaned against the wall, listening. Her mother replied quickly, almost in panic. "We did what we had to do. Della lost everything after her marriage collapsed. She had nowhere to go. Binta is strong, she'll be fine. She doesn't need the house. But Della, she would have broken completely." Her father's voice softened. "Still, it wasn't right. Mom trusted us with that money for Binta. We promised her." There was a long pause. Then her mother said, "It's done now. Della has moved in. What's the point of reopening it? If Binta finds out, this family will fall apart." Binta covered her mouth to stop herself from crying out loud. Every word felt like a knife in her chest. It wasn't only about the house anymore. It was about the fact that her parents had decided she didn't matter as much. That her pain was acceptable, but Della's wasn't. She stepped back slowly, her vision blurry with tears. All her life, she had done everything to make her parents proud. She worked hard, sent money home, even helped pay Della's bills when her marriage ended. But in the end, they chose to lie to her. She walked back to her room quietly and sat on her bed, staring at the floor. It wasn't the betrayal itself that hurt the most. It was the reason behind it. They didn't think she would understand. They didn't trust her enough to tell her the truth. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "So that's how little I mean to them." In that moment, Binta realized something had changed forever. The love she had for her family was still there, but the trust, the pure blind trust, was gone. And she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Binta wanted to scream, but she didn't. She spent the whole day pretending everything was normal. She smiled at her parents, helped her mother in the kitchen, and spoke politely, but inside, she was boiling with pain. That night, while everyone slept, she sat in her room and made a decision. She wouldn't confront them yet. She needed proof. If she went to them without evidence, they would deny everything and make her look like the ungrateful one. She had to be sure before she spoke. The next morning, she called Mr. Ade, an old family friend who had worked in real estate for years. He had always been close to her grandmother and treated Binta like a daughter. When he picked up, his warm voice brought tears to her eyes. She told him she needed help checking some property documents, and didn't go into much detail. He agreed to meet her at a small cafe later that day. When they met, Binta showed him the house details she had found online. Mr. Ade frowned as he read them. "This house. I remember this transaction," he said slowly. "Your grandmother contacted me for advice before buying it. She was so happy, said it was for her hard-working granddaughter." Binta's throat tightened. "Then why is it under my parents' name?" she asked quietly. Mr. Ade looked surprised. He pulled out his tablet and checked the official records. After a few minutes, he turned the screen toward her. "The payment was made from your grandmother's account, but it was wired into your father's personal account before the purchase. Then the house was registered under your parents' family trust. 2 months later, it was retitled to Della Olenire. The reason listed is for convenience." Binta felt her stomach twist. There it was, the truth, written in cold black letters. Her grandmother had bought the house for her, and her father had taken the money, changed the title, and given it to Della. She sat quietly, staring at the screen. Mr. Ade placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry, my dear. I don't think your grandmother knew any of this. She trusted your father completely." Binta nodded, tears filling her eyes. She finally understood everything. Her parents hadn't just lied. They had stolen from her to protect Della, their golden child. As she walked home that evening, the sunset painted the sky orange. But she didn't notice its beauty. Her heart was heavy. The truth she had discovered gave her power, but it also broke something inside her. She knew she could never see her family the same way again. Binta stood outside the gate of the house on Coral Lane, her heart pounding as she looked at the beautiful white building in front of her. It was even more stunning in real life. Tall windows, a small garden, and the golden number 7 shining on the gate. This was supposed to be her home, a gift from her grandmother. But someone else had been living here, enjoying everything that wasn't meant for them. She pressed the bell, and after a few moments the door opened. Della appeared, dressed in a silky robe, her hair neatly tied back. She looked surprised for a second, then smiled faintly, as if she had expected this moment someday. "Oh, you found it," she said softly. Binta forced a small smile. "Yes," she replied. "I wanted to see the house Grandma got for me." Della blinked, pretending to be confused. "For you?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Mom said you didn't want it because you travel too much. She told me Grandma offered it to you first, but you turned it down. So they said it would be better if I stayed here." Her words hit Binta like a slap. For a second, she couldn't even speak. Della's calm tone made everything worse. As if this lie had been rehearsed, repeated until it sounded true. Binta stared at her sister, searching her face for a trace of guilt. But Della only looked nervous, not sorry. Binta walked inside slowly, her eyes taking in the elegant furniture, the flowers by the window, the photos on the wall, all the things she could have decorated herself if the truth had been respected. Every step felt heavier. She could almost see her grandmother's proud smile when she had said, "I got you a house, my hard-working girl." And now here was Della, standing in the middle of it, living a lie. "Della," Binta said quietly, "Grandma didn't buy this house for you. She bought it for me. I've seen the documents." Della's face stiffened for a second, then she laughed nervously. "Documents? You must be mistaken. Mom handled everything. Maybe Grandma just forgot who she put it under." Binta shook her head slowly. No, she didn't forget. There was silence between them. The air felt heavy. Della looked away, her eyes glistening as if she wanted to say more but couldn't. Finally she whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you, Binta. I just needed a place to start over." Binta felt her throat tighten. "You didn't hurt me, Della. They did. You just accepted it." Without another word, she turned around and walked out of the house. Her eyes burned with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She knew that if she stayed one more second, she would break. That day, as she walked down Coral Lane, Binta realized something inside her had changed forever. A part of her love for her sister had died quietly, leaving only silence behind. Weeks passed after the painful visit to Coral Lane. Binta tried to keep herself busy with work, but her heart was still heavy. Every time she thought of her grandmother, she felt both love and sadness. Grandma had trusted her parents, believed they would do the right thing, and they had betrayed that trust. But Binta didn't want to hurt her grandmother with the truth. She decided to stay quiet, at least for now. Then one afternoon, she received a call from her uncle. His voice was serious. "Binta, it's Grandma. She's in the hospital." Her heart dropped. Without wasting a second, she rushed there. When she entered the hospital room, Grandma looked weak, lying on the bed with oxygen tubes around her nose. But when she saw Binta, her eyes softened with warmth. "Come closer, my child," Grandma whispered. Binta sat beside her and held her hand tightly. "I wanted to see your face," Grandma said, smiling faintly. "I've not been feeling well, and the doctors say I need surgery tomorrow. But before that, there's something I must give you." She slowly reached under her pillow and brought out a small brown envelope, her hands trembling slightly. "In case I don't wake up," she said softly, "you'll find the truth inside. Keep it safe." Binta's throat tightened. "Grandma, please don't talk like that. You'll be fine." But Grandma only smiled, her eyes full of both love and sadness. "You've always been my strongest girl," she whispered. "You work hard, you never complain, and I wanted to give you something to make life easier. But I fear others may have taken what was yours. This envelope will tell you everything." When Grandma fell asleep, Binta stepped out of the room and sat quietly in the hospital corridor. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside were several papers. Copies of bank wire transfers showing huge amounts sent from Grandma's account directly to her father's name. There were also property documents that clearly mentioned beneficiary, Miss Binta Olanire. And at the bottom, folded neatly, was a handwritten note from Grandma. It read, "My dearest Binta, this house was my promise to you. You've always given without asking for anything in return. Don't let anyone take it away. This is your future, your peace, your home." Tears filled Binta's eyes as she clutched the note to her chest. It was the final truth, clear, undeniable proof that the house was hers. The pain she had carried for weeks now mixed with a deep sense of relief. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Grandma. I'll protect your promise." For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel lost. She felt ready to fight for what was rightfully hers. Binta spent many nights sitting alone, reading her grandmother's note again and again. Every word reminded her of love, trust, and betrayal. She knew what she had to do now. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. Grandma had worked hard her entire life and saved that money to give her a future, not to be stolen by those who were supposed to protect her. One morning, Binta gathered all the documents, the receipts, the property papers, and the handwritten note, and placed them carefully inside a folder. Her hands shook, but her mind was clear. She searched for a lawyer known for handling property fraud cases and booked an appointment. When she arrived at the lawyer's office, she explained everything from the beginning. The dinner conversation, the online search, the hidden argument she overheard, and finally, her grandmother's envelope. The lawyer, an older man with kind eyes, listened carefully without interrupting. After reading the documents, he looked up and said, "Miss Binta, you have a strong case. This is a clear case of fraudulent transfer. The house was purchased with your grandmother's money for you, but your parents illegally titled it under another name. The law is on your side." Hearing those words made Binta's heart race. For the first time, she felt supported. She signed the papers to begin the legal process, and the lawyer filed a case immediately. Once the documents reached the court, news spread quickly within the extended family. Relatives started whispering, calling, and gossiping. Some blamed her for bringing shame to the family, while others quietly admired her courage. Her parents were shocked when they received the court summons. Her mother called her repeatedly, begging her to drop the case. "You'll destroy us," she cried. Her father shouted over the phone, accusing her of being ungrateful. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us," he said. But Binta stayed calm. She had stayed silent all her life, not this time. Soon, the story spread beyond the family. Everyone who once praised her parents began to see their true faces. The proud, respected couple who always talked about values and honesty were now facing questions they couldn't answer. Della's perfect world began to crumble too. Her friends started avoiding her. Her job became stressful, and her once comfortable home now felt like a reminder of her guilt. She tried to reach out to Binta, but Binta didn't respond. People called Binta greedy, selfish, and disrespectful. But she didn't care anymore. She had spent her whole life being the quiet one, the giver, the one who never complained. This time, she was choosing herself. And as the court date drew closer, she promised herself one thing. She would speak her truth, no matter how much it hurt. The courtroom was filled with whispers as Binta entered, her hands trembling but her eyes steady. Across the room sat her parents and Della. Her mother looked pale, pretending to wipe away tears. Her father avoided eye contact, staring down at his shoes. Della sat quietly, her once confident smile replaced with fear. The tension in the air was heavy, like everyone could feel the truth was about to break through years of lies. The judge asked for calm before the proceedings began. Binta's lawyer stood and presented the documents Grandma had left, the bank receipts, the signed property transfer, and the letter with Grandma's handwriting. Every page spoke louder than any excuse. Binta's father cleared his throat and tried to explain, saying it was a misunderstanding, that he thought Binta didn't want the house. Her mother quickly nodded, adding that they only gave it to Della to keep it in the family. But everyone in the room could hear the weakness in their voices. When it was Della's turn to speak, her voice cracked. She whispered that she didn't know the truth, that she only did what their parents told her. The judge listened quietly, then turned to Binta. For a moment, all eyes were on her. She didn't speak with anger. She spoke with calm truth. She explained how her grandmother had always told her the house was meant for her, a gift of love and security. She spoke about how she had believed her family, how she had stayed silent even when her heart told her something was wrong. The room fell silent as the judge flipped through the last page of the file. Everyone held their breath. Then, in a firm, steady voice, he said the words that ended months of pain. "This property legally belongs to Ms. Binta Olanire." The words echoed through the courtroom. Della covered her face and burst into tears. Her father's expression froze in shock, and her mother looked like her world had just collapsed. Binta stood still. She didn't smile or cry. She simply closed her eyes and let the truth sink in. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel like the forgotten daughter, or the one who had to earn love. She felt free. But along with that freedom came a deep sadness. Sadness that the people she called family had forced her to fight for what was rightfully hers. As she left the courtroom, reporters whispered her name, and relatives called after her. But she didn't turn around. She walked out quietly, holding Grandma's letter close to her heart. It wasn't victory she felt, it was closure. The truth had finally spoken for her, and that was enough. After the court verdict, Binta didn't rush to move into the house that caused so much pain. She stood outside its gate one evening, looking at the old walls that once held her grandmother's laughter. It no longer felt like a trophy or a win. It felt like a memory she needed to protect. So instead of keeping it for herself, she decided to do something her grandmother would have been proud of. She began renovating the place, painting the walls, fixing the roof, and planting flowers in the garden just like Grandma used to. When the work was done, she turned it into a small rental home for single mothers and their children, women who had nowhere else to go, just as her grandmother once helped struggling neighbors without asking for anything in return. Every room carried a piece of that kindness. On the door, she placed a small plaque that read, "Grandma's Promise, a place for new beginnings." It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about turning pain into purpose. Her parents heard about it through mutual friends. One afternoon they came to see her. Her mother's voice trembled as she said, "We didn't mean to hurt you, Binta. We thought we were doing what was best." Her father stood quietly behind her, his eyes tired and full of regret. Binta didn't shout or cry. She simply listened. She understood that some apologies come too late, and some wounds never fully close. She told them gently that forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. It just means she's choosing peace over anger. They wanted to visit often, to rebuild what they had broken, but Binta kept her distance. She needed time. Time to trust again. Time to breathe without feeling betrayed. Her heart wasn't bitter anymore, just wiser. She didn't hate them, but she no longer depended on their love to feel whole. As for Della, she moved back home with their parents. The glow of her expensive life had faded. She was quieter now, no longer the sister who mocked or competed. Sometimes she sent short messages to Binta, small apologies, updates about their parents, or just greetings. Binta replied politely but never opened old doors. One Sunday evening, as she stood outside Grandma's house watching the sunset reflect off the fresh white walls, Binta smiled softly. The house was finally at peace. Not because it was hers by law, but because it now carried the spirit of kindness that Grandma had always taught her. The betrayal that once broke her had become the foundation for something beautiful, a home that gave others hope. And deep inside, Binta knew that was the real victory her grandmother had wanted all along. Months later, Grandma recovered and asked to see the house again. Binta drove her there on a quiet afternoon. The moment they arrived, Grandma's eyes softened. The place looked alive. The garden bloomed with bright flowers. The sound of children's laughter filled the air, and the smell of fresh bread came from the kitchen. A few single mothers sat on the porch, talking and smiling, their children running barefoot on the grass. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a home full of second chances. Grandma slowly walked through the gate, her hand resting on Binta's arm for support. She looked around in awe, her heart swelling with pride. "This is what you did with it," she whispered. Binta nodded with a small smile. "I wanted it to mean something. I wanted it to help people, the way you always helped others." Tears welled up in Grandma's eyes as she took in every detail. The clean white walls, the small library shelf by the living room, the children's drawings taped near the window. She turned to Binta. her voice trembling. You didn't just claim your house, my child, she said softly. You claimed your worth. Binta looked down for a moment, her eyes glistening. I didn't want revenge, Grandma, she said quietly. I just wanted respect and peace. She wasn't angry anymore. The pain of betrayal had faded into something deeper, a lesson. She realized she didn't need anyone's apology to move forward. All she needed was to choose herself. Grandma reached out and held her hand tightly. You've done something even I couldn't, she whispered. You turned hurt into healing. They sat on the porch together, watching the children play. A little girl ran up and handed Binta a flower. Thank you for the house, Auntie, she said with a shy smile before running off again. That simple moment made Binta's heart warm in a way she hadn't felt in years. Her parents and Della didn't visit anymore, but that was okay. She had stopped waiting for them to understand. What mattered now was peace, the quiet kind that comes from knowing you did the right thing. The kind her grandmother always spoke about. As the sun began to set, Grandma leaned on Binta's shoulder, smiling through her tears. Your mother will see this one day, she murmured. And she'll know what true strength looks like. Binta nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing horizon. For the first time in years, she finally felt at home. Not just in the house her grandmother gave her, but in her own truth, her own peace, and the life she built with grace instead of revenge.